Putting everything we've learned together, we're now gonna dive into the concept of a piecewise function. Now, a piecewise function is a function with different mathematical rules or equations for different domain intervals. Consider the following function, f of x. The three pieces individually have different intervals, but altogether they make f of x. And if we take the pieces into consideration, beginning with a and b, we can see that here the object that we are trying to model was traveling fairly fast. But then from the interval beginning at b, ending at c, we see that the object was at rest. And then we can see that from the interval c to d, the object began to move again at a slower rate, right? It's taking the object a little bit longer to reach the destination as opposed from the beginning where it was moving a lot faster. That's what this last part means, so that each piece has a different domain interval. So this blue part, the interval is from A to B. This red part is from B to C, and then this white part is from C to D. But before we begin to talk about the technicalities, let's practice a little bit more with the examples on how to evaluate these functions. Now here, example 1. The tortoise and the hare agree to have a race. The hare is very confident. He sits down and gives the tortoise a head start. After a bit, the hare begins to jog. He passes the tortoise and he decides to give the tortoise a chance at winning, so the hare takes a nap. When the hare wakes up, the tortoise crosses the finish line. The hare dashes towards the tortoise. Now we have to use the context and the graph in order to answer the questions 1 through 3. Let's begin by first making sense out of this graph. So here we can see that this graph is modeling the trajectory of the hare. So here we can see that this part, the hare is at rest. He's sitting down, giving the tortoise a head start. But then the hare decides to begin his jog. Somewhere along these lines, or somewhere along this interval, the hare crosses the tortoise and he gets overconfident again, so he decides to take a nap. So he takes a nap for a while, but when he wakes up, he sees that the tortoise is already crossing the finish line, so he decides to dash towards the tortoise. Now here the x-axis is labeled with minutes and the y-axis is labeled in miles. So let's grab some random point here. So for example, at 40 minutes, we can see that the hare had traveled a distance of half a mile. All right, and that's because he was sleeping, right? When he was sleeping, he stopped advancing. So you can say that throughout this interval, the hare had only traveled a distance of 0.5. Once you start getting into these values, you can see that the distance starts to change. At this value, which we don't really know for sure what it is, but at this value, he crossed 1 mile. At this value, he was able to reach 1.5 miles. And then after 50 minutes, he was able to finish the race. Well, now that we made some sense out of this, let's begin to answer questions. So let's begin with part 1. When did the hare decide to start the race? Now we know that the hare gave the tortoise a head start, so he was sitting down for a bit, and by the look of the graph, we can see that the hare began his race after 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, he decided that it was time to begin jogging. So here we can say after 5 minutes. Moving on, how much time did the hare spend taking his nap? So we know that the hare took his nap from this interval right here, beginning at 10 minutes and then ending at 40 minutes. So to get the time, we have to count this. So from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, uh, the hare should have spent half an hour sleeping, right? Because 10 plus 30 will give us 40. So here we can say that he spent 30 minutes napping. After the hare woke up, how much did he have to run in order to get to the tortoise who was in the finish line? So after 40 minutes, that's when the hare woke up and he dashed this final part right here. So let me outline it in yellow. He dashed all of this. And now we have to calculate this distance here. So we know that from here to here, we're basically going to have to calculate the distance between 0.5 and 2. How much distance is getting covered from these 2 points, right? Because this distance refers to this distance that the hare jogged, or dashed, I should say. So from 0.5 to 2, we have a total of 1.5. So here, we can write that the hare dashed 1.5 miles. Right after he woke up, he had to run a distance of 1.5 miles to get to that finish line. He had already jogged half a mile. So that's basically it. Now do the next set of problems. They're very similar to this one, where you're going to have to use the context and use the information on the graph, make sense out of it to answer what is being asked.